All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Wagatwe Wanjuki. Wagatwe is a writer for Feministing and F Yeah Feminists. She is an activist for the Know Your Nine campaign, all of which and more you can find at wagatwe.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at Wagatwe. Wagatwe, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Wagatwe, before we get to what personally happened to you a few years ago when you were a student at Tufts University, let's begin by discussing, if listeners are not aware, describe from them what exactly is Title IX.
So Title IX is a civil rights federal law that prohibits sex discrimination in education. And that essentially means that this is not just in terms of sports, which a lot of people know about, but also schools have to actively prevent and properly respond to instances of sexual violence and sexual harassment.
So that's what the law is, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. Let's get to kind of what led you into the activism you do for that. Tell us what actually happened to you when you were at Tufts University, because you were, in fact, raped several times, and the university, frankly, handled it horribly. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I was involved in a relationship, and there were multiple instances of abuse and sexual assault. And excuse me, when I finally reported, the school pretended that they were going to help me, but then I started the process, and Tufts actually decided to break its own rules and did not move forward with addressing any of the allegations I put forward. So that was one violation of Title IX right then and there. And then when I started speaking up about what happened to me, they conveniently decided it was time for me to be expelled from the university. And when I appealed this expulsion, it was in the hands of the academic advisor of my assailant. And needless to say, my appeal was not accepted. They said that their general counsel did their own research of Title IX, and they made sure that they didn't have to help me, which is absolutely false. Title IX means that schools have to support survivors in the aftermath of sexual violence because it's about equal access to education. So if a student has been sexually harassed or raped or sexually assaulted, this is creating a hostile environment. So the school has to work to remedy that.
Discuss a little more because your expulsion was I've heard you talk about it before, is insane, and because it really was, you were well within the academic standards of still being at the university, but they really so really you were expelled for trying to seek justice for a crime that was committed against you.
Definitely, I definitely feel like they were threatened because at that point I felt like I didn't have much to lose, and I think people needed to hear the stories of people who have lived this really terrible sexual assault policy that was in play. So my GPA expectedly had taken quite the hit because I was involved in a terrible relationship, and then I filed a complaint, and then the school essentially decided to ignore it. So I was dealing with not having any support. I was dealing with the trauma of not just the abuse, but also the trauma of an institution failing to assist me or say that what happened to me was any sort of wrong. So it was terrible. My GPA was still high enough for me to have been able to graduate, and I essentially only had one more year to finish my degree at the school.
Again, I'm talking to Wagatwe Wanjuki, writer for Feministing, F Yeah Feminist, activist for Know Your Nine. You can find her work at wagatwe.com and on Twitter at Wagatwe. So, beyond what happened to you at Tufts, you've been involved. I mean, after that, you started a blog for other survivors at Tufts, and consistently, this happened in 2008, correct?
I was expelled in 2009.
2009. So this began in 2007, and then you were expelled in 2009, and even since then, Tufts has been continually horrific when it comes to that. Discuss some of the stuff that happened between the crime that happened to you and what's happened between now and then.
So there's been many steps forward with still a continued amount of failure on the institution side. So when I was assaulted, the sexual assault policy was essentially 2 sentences and a list of phone numbers, and it was like, Tufts thinks rape is bad. If it happens to you, you should call one of these numbers. They can help you, which is not what a sexual assault policy should be. That is absolutely unacceptable. But now the school has a much more longer, comprehensive policy. However, the same administrators that were there during my time are there now, and they have been failing survivors left and right. This school still refuses to punish perpetrators properly, and I know survivors have been punished as well, whether it's in very roundabout way. So for me, they technically said that I was expelled because of my academic performance, and they have done similar things where someone's assailant charged them with fraud, and so the survivor was punished with probation too. So just very unacceptable behavior. And most recently, Tufts entered a voluntary resolution with the federal government and then said that they were taking back their signature, saying that the Department of Education, who is enforcing Title IX, did not know what they were talking about when they said that Tufts is in violation of Title IX. So I think this is a reflection of Tufts getting away with mistreating survivors for so long that they feel like they had the audacity to be able to say, no, federal government, you're wrong, and we can remove ourselves from this agreement we had with you.
Yeah, let's reiterate that point here. So they were under investigation, and they still are, and they were like, okay, no, we want to do what's right. Here we're going to sign this paper saying we're going forward to make this better. Tufts really does care. This is something that we care about. All right, we'll put our name on it. And then they went, you know what? We changed our mind. No, federal government, you're entirely wrong. We're withdrawing this. We're not actually going to continue on because federal government, you don't know how great it is for survivors at Tufts. Tufts University, we got it down. All the survivors are great. It's one big happy family here at Tufts University, and they withdrew their agreement with the Department of Education.
Right. So it just doesn't make any sense. They're just saying, hey, you don't know what Title IX is. We know we're not in compliance. So it's like, well, this is their law. I think they know if you're out of compliance or not. But, students were outraged, and there was a huge protest. I think about 300 students were staged a protest and a sit-in, and they were able to get some progress for the school to move forward and supporting survivors better. But it's just terrible. Just the school felt that they could say, even if it was a gesture, just for them to say that, hey, we're backing out of this agreement with the federal government. That's just unacceptable.